Hello guys, and welcome back to yet another video. It is so good to see you again, and if this is your first time here, hello, my name is Haylee, and I'm a lucid dreaming and out-of-body experience coach, and I help people induce altered states of consciousness for life transformation and healing. Today we're going to be talking about the most efficient way to lucid dream, not only consistently, but spontaneously too. And this means you don't have to wake up at 4 in the morning to do induction techniques. You'll just be able to get lucid spontaneously in your dreams without disrupting your sleeping cycle. And we can do this with reality checks. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down 5 of the most effective reality checks that you can use to spontaneously lucid dream. But before we get into reality checks, this video is sponsored by Keen. Keen is an online platform where you can connect with intuitives all around the world who specialize in many different topics like tarot, mediumship, and so much more. Not only is Keen 24/7, which allows you to connect with an intuitive at any time, but they are also available through phone call, email, and chat. If you've already been using Keen, then you receive weekly discounts sent right to your email. And if you've never used Keen before and you want to check them out, then you can get your first 10-minute reading on Keen for just $1.99 by going to trykeen.com/thelucidmystic. And if you do try out Keen, share your experience in the comments for a chance to be featured in one of my upcoming videos. Thank you so much, Keen, for sponsoring this video, and without further ado, let's get back to the video. But first, let's talk about why we all don't consistently lucid dream every single night. Well, a lot of you may have heard me say this before, and it's because it is so true. We live how we dream. And this means whatever we do in waking life, our dreaming self reflects that. Now, think about society as a whole. How many people do you know stop throughout the day to check if they're dreaming and to ask themselves if they could be dreaming and how they actually know if they're awake? That seems silly to a lot of people, right? Because a lot of people are just so sure that they're awake that they don't have to check, right? Well, unfortunately, this creates the habit in our dreams too. If we assume that we're always awake in waking life and we feel like we don't have to check, then we're always going to do that in our dreams too. This is why we can have really weird things happen to us in our dreams and not even bat an eye and not even question it, because we're so used to assuming that we are awake in waking life that now our dreaming self has adapted the same habit. So whatever you want the dreaming version of you to do, you need to do in waking life. If weird stuff is happening to you in your dreams and you're not realizing that it's a dream, then you need to become more aware in waking life. You need to become more critical during the day in waking life, which will allow your dreaming self to habitually become more critical and ask questions like, wait, that was weird. Could this be a dream? And this is why lucid dreaming is not just a sleeping practice. It is a lifestyle. In order to lucid dream consistently, we need to live lucidly. We need to be aware. We need to question things when something seems off, because we're training our dreaming self to do the same when we do this in waking life. So really, when we do reality checks, when we ask ourselves if we could be dreaming in waking life, if we start doing that consistently throughout the day, we're going to create that same habit, and you'll notice that your dreaming self will habitually ask if they're dreaming during the dream, which will get you lucid because you've created that same habit during waking life. Now, there's 2 parts to a reality check. There's a mental reality check and a physical reality check. A mental reality check is asking yourself the questions: how do I know that I'm awake right now? Is there anything weird about what's happening right now? How did I get here? What was I doing just 10 minutes ago? If you train yourself to ask these questions and actually ask them in waking life, then you're going to train your dreaming self to do the same thing. If you create this habit in waking life, then your dreaming self will have that same habit, which will allow you to get lucid without waking up and doing induction techniques. And when you do a reality check, you want to make sure to do both. You want to ask yourself the questions, which is the mental reality check, that's activating the critical part of our brain, which will help us get lucid, and the physical reality check, the actual checking of something in your environment to see if you're dreaming or not. Now, this may sound familiar if you've seen the movie Inception, and they actually use a spinning top as their reality check. But we're not guaranteed to have a spinning top every single time we're in a dream. So when you're doing a physical reality check, you want to use something like your hands, because you should always have your hands, right? So however you do your reality checks in waking life, you're going to do them the same way in your dreams. So if you get used to checking your hands and counting your fingers to see if you're awake or not, then your dreaming self is going to do the same thing. Now, before I get into the physical reality checks, it's important to know how and why it works. We've already discussed that whatever we do in waking life creates the habit, so our dreaming self has the same habit, right? But why do we physically check something in our environment? It's because the dream does not act the same way as waking life does. When we count our fingers in waking life, we should have the same amount of fingers every time we look, right? And our hands should look the same. The lines should be consistent whether we look away or not, right? That lets us know that we're awake. But the dream world is so different. The dream has a hard time at detailed pattern recognition, which means the dream will have a really hard time replicating the lines on your hands perfectly and replicating intense detail. So if you get in the habit of checking your hands during the day and looking at the lines on your hands, your dreaming self will have the same habit. But when your dreaming self goes to look at the lines on your hands, they're going to be different, they're going to look off in some way, or you might not even have hands, which should tell you that you're in a dream. When we do reality checks, we're basically trying to see through the illusion. When we do reality checks in waking life, we really have to train ourselves to question if we could actually be dreaming, which will help us actually truly question if we could be dreaming when we're dreaming. If you do reality checks and you don't even take them seriously, you're like, I know I'm awake, I guess I'll just rush through these reality checks then you're gonna notice your dream self does the same thing. Your dreaming self will assume that they're awake and they will half-ass the reality checks and not even take it seriously, which will create a missed opportunity to get lucid. Again, we dream how we live, so how we actually do our reality checks in waking life matters because our dreaming self is going to do them the same way. So actually question and take them seriously and use your environment to see if you're dreaming or not. Aside from the dream having a hard time replicating detail, it also has a hard time replicating what just happened in the dream. So if you look at a billboard in the dream, for example, and you look away and look back, the billboard is going to change because the dream has a hard time at replicating what it just saw, what it just created. So if you look at a billboard for your reality check, and you look away and you look back, if you're dreaming, it's going to change in some way because the dream has a very hard time at being as consistent as waking life is. So you're basically looking for the differences when you are dreaming. You need to always assume that you're dreaming because if you always assume that you could be dreaming, you're going to naturally have that understanding when you're dreaming and be more aware of what's going on. Now, we've already covered mental reality checks and you can ask yourself any questions you want, but the ones that I told you are some of my favorite ones. You know, how do I know that I'm awake right now? Where am I? How did I get here? Is anything weird about what's going on? Where was I 10 minutes ago? If you get in the habit of asking yourself these throughout the day, you're going to start asking these same questions in the dream. And if you get in the habit of asking, where was I 10 minutes ago? And you ask that in the dream, you're going to realize, wait, the last thing I remember was getting ready for bed. So that means that this must be a dream. But now let's cover some of my favorite physical reality checks that help me get lucid consistently. We kind of touched on this, but it's counting your fingers. When you do this in waking life, not only do you want to ask the mental questions, but you want to do the physical checks at the same time. So I count my fingers, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Looks like I have 10, and then I look away and I look back. Again, the reason why I do the reality checks twice is because the dream can trick you. If you get in the habit of just doing reality checks once, then you're always going to do them only once in the dream, but the dream can trick you to make you think that you're actually awake. So if you get in the habit of only doing one reality check, then you might not get lucid. So it's good to do multiple reality checks, but also do ones twice. So after I count my fingers and it stays consistent and it looks like I am awake because nothing's odd about my hands or how many fingers I have, I'm going to move on to the next reality check, which is called the finger palm push, or at least that's what I call it. It's basically where you try to push your finger through your palm, and this may look weird, like why would we do this as a reality check? But we have to understand again that the dream acts differently than waking life does. So in waking life, of course our finger probably isn't going to go through our palm unless we have like a hole in our hand or something, right? But if you get in the habit of doing this throughout the day, your dreaming self is going to start doing that too, but your finger will actually go through your palm in the dream because your dreaming self is just an illusion, right? It's just a projection. So things won't act the same when you do them in the dream. So when you do this reality check in waking life, you really want to study the result. Okay, my hand seems pretty solid. Everything looks fine. My finger's not going through. Okay, it looks like I'm awake. And again, you really want to take these seriously and really get in the mindset that you could be dreaming right now. And that will help you take these reality checks a lot more seriously, and it will help you do them more thoroughly so you have a better chance of getting lucid when your dreaming self does them. After the finger palm push, I like to plug my nose and try to breathe in. And the reason why I do this for a reality check is because if I get in the habit of doing this throughout the day and I start to do that in my dream, I'm going to be able to breathe through my closed nose. Because keep in mind, when you do the reality check when you're dreaming, your physical body is safe sleeping in bed and you're not physically covering your nose, right? You're only covering your dream nose in the dream. So you'll actually be able to breathe just fine if you do this reality check in the dream, which will obviously tell you that you're in a dream. The next reality check that I like to do is checking time. Again, the dream has a very hard time at detailed pattern recognition and replicating what it just saw. So if you look at the time, okay, it's 4:11 p.m. for me right now. Look away. Okay, it's still 4:11 p.m. Okay, that checks out. There you go. That's a very, very easy reality check. And you always have your phone on you or a watch so you can do this reality check really whenever. But you don't have to do only these reality checks. These are just some ways that you can do reality checks to use your environment. And also, I wouldn't just do reality checks when you're at home, because if you do that, you'll get in the habit in your dreams of only doing reality checks if you are home. So make sure whenever you can to do a reality check, even if you're not home, but we'll get into that later after this last reality check that we're going to cover. Another amazing reality check is checking the lines on your hand, which we kind of covered before, because the dream has a very hard time replicating these lines. They are very specific. We know what our hands look like, right? And so they're going to look different in the dream. The lines might be all messed up. You might not have any lines on your hands at all. You might not have the same amount of fingers that you do in waking life. Or in the dream, you might notice that those aren't even your hands. So as you can see, reality checks are about seeing through the illusion. We should get in the habit of doing reality checks throughout the day and getting familiar with the result that we get through the reality check, because this will help us realize when we get a different result from a reality check, which obviously means that we're dreaming. If I get used to counting my fingers and I always have 10 fingers, but I do a reality check in my dream spontaneously and I have 20 fingers, that's clearly going to tell me that I'm dreaming, right? So reality checks are all about getting in the habit of seeing through illusion and getting in the habit of questioning your environment and using your environment to see if you're dreaming or not. Now, when it comes to how often we should do reality checks, we want to make reality checks a habit so they show up in our dreams. So to make it a habit, I definitely recommend doing at least 10 reality checks a day. This means physical and mental reality checks combined. You do not have to do all of the physical reality checks that we've talked about here. You can even make up your own to see if you're dreaming or not. Use things in your environment to determine if you're dreaming or not. But I definitely recommend doing the questioning and some physical reality checks together every time. The questioning is arguably more important than the physical reality check, because we wouldn't be able to get lucid if we didn't critically question the situation, if we didn't build that awareness naturally. So never skip out on asking yourself the questions. Make sure to combine the mental reality checks with the physical reality checks. So again, I recommend doing at least 10 reality checks a day to create the habit of doing them. You can set your alarm on your phone to go off every hour or so if you want, or anytime you think of dreams or you see something that reminds you of your dreams, do a reality check. I do a reality check about every hour. It kind of happens spontaneously now, but anytime I see anything that reminds me of my dreams, anytime I hear or see the word dream, or anything that reminds me of my dreams at all, I'll check if I'm dreaming. And this helps me get in the habit of checking if I'm dreaming anytime I hear anything regarding dreams. That means if I dream of someone talking about dreaming, then I'm going to do a reality check. There's no specific way to do a reality check. It's all about building up the critical thinking skills so you can be more critical in your dreams and realize when you're dreaming. But I definitely recommend creating some sort of consistency with it and using things in your environment to determine if you're awake or not. Even when I go on a walk, I will look at the leaves on the trees and look at them up close, and I wouldn't really be able to do that in the dream. There are a lot of details in the dreams, but it changes. It's not consistent, so that's why I do my reality checks twice, because if I get in the habit of checking my hand twice, then in the dream I'm going to do that and it might look fine the first time, but then when I look away and look back, it's going to be different in some way, and that's going to tell me that I'm dreaming and allow me to have a lucid dream. Aside from just doing reality checks whenever you hear about something relating to dreams or anytime your alarm goes off, you can also set up what's called lucidity triggers. This is basically something that triggers you to do a reality check to see if you're dreaming. For example, one of my lucidity triggers is anytime I go to the bathroom and I look in the mirror, I check if I'm dreaming. That means anytime I go to the bathroom and I wash my hands and I'm looking at myself in the mirror, I check if I'm dreaming. This helps me create the habit that mirror means check if you're dreaming. That way, anytime I dream of going to the bathroom or I dream of being in front of a mirror, I know that that is my cue to check if I'm dreaming, which will help me have a spontaneous lucid dream. As you can see, it's all about creating a habit of awareness and critical thinking and using your environment to determine if you are dreaming or not. Because if you get in the habit of messing around with your environment, checking the time, looking at things closely, looking at your hands, when you do that in the dream, you will get lucid so much easier because you've trained yourself to look closer. You've trained yourself to question things. You've trained yourself to look at your environment and study it and see if anything's different about it. Again, these are just some of my favorite reality checks, but you can literally use anything in your environment to determine if you are awake or not. Just mess around with the environment, like see how gravity works. I mean, that wouldn't be able to happen in the dream the same way that it just happened. The dream will always be a little bit different in some way. So you're basically studying how this reality works, and you get accustomed to how your reality checks are in waking life, and then when they transfer to your dreams, you will realize when you get a different result from your reality check. If you're so used to checking the time throughout the day and you're like, okay, yep, it looks the same, and then you experience that same thing in the dream, the next time you look at the clock in your dream, if you do your reality checks twice, it's going to be completely different. The time might be completely gone, right? So it's all about seeing through the illusion of the dream world, trying to see the glitch in the matrix, I guess you could say. So ask yourself a series of questions every single time you do a reality check, and I definitely recommend doing at least 3 different physical reality checks. You can do any of the ones that I have listed here, or you can make up your own. And that's what's fun about it, is there's no specific like textbook way to do it. It's all about asking yourself some questions to determine if you're awake or dreaming, and checking something physically in your environment to determine if it's normal or not. That's really all that it is. And if you can take this time to create this habit, you will not have to wake up to do induction techniques. You will get lucid spontaneously without even disrupting your sleeping cycle. So it's technically being more efficient, if you ask me. I know there's so many different kinds of reality checks that people do. That's what's so fun about this practice. So I would love to hear about the reality checks that you do and what your lucidity triggers are, if you have any specific lucidity triggers. And if you do anything in your lucid dreaming practice, dream journal and reality checks, everything that we covered in this video, and you'll be set. That's literally the foundation of dream recall and spontaneous lucid dreaming. So if you want to cut out all the extra stuff, then just make sure that you are dream journaling every day and you do consistent reality checks every day, and you will lucid dream for sure. Like, you will. Alright guys, that is all for this video. I hope that you got something out of this video. If you have any questions, definitely let me know, and I would love to hear about your guys' reality check process and what lucidity triggers that you use in your dream practice. If you guys haven't subscribed yet and you like the content I create, make sure to subscribe down below, and if you have any questions about how you and I can work together, you can email me or you can check the description to view my courses, classes, and my mentorships. And again, a special thanks to Keen for sponsoring this video. Again, if you want to get your first 10 minutes on Keen for just $1.99, then you can go to trykeen.com/thelucidmystic. Thank you guys for joining in this video. I love you so much, and as always, I'm sending you endless love and endless lucidity.